Yeah. And you mentioned there may be some myths around kava. What are there? What kind of myths?
Oh, there's a lot. It's like any other plant medicine, right? I mean, there's not a single plant medicine or effective therapy that doesn't have like a bucket full of misnomers and myths around it, right? You know this, right? Going in everything in regenerative medicine, people believe all kinds of things, and the FDA says all kinds of things, or that there's all kinds of things that are said, and most of it is usually nonsense and fear mongering, or there's partial truth to it, but it's only in certain contexts, so the devil's in the details. And it's most of this stuff is ignorance and misperception when it comes to these natural therapies, right? Because at the end of the day, all of these natural therapies, any potential side effect at any dose pales in comparison to even like the most mild side effect that you get from a drug, right? So there's usually that kind of preface it with. The main myths about kava are usually around its safety and its efficacy, which ties back into traditional kava versus these denatured products that aren't. If you Google kava on the internet still today, you'll get some articles even to this day that used to be far, far greater in their circulation before we got started, that correlate kava with liver toxicity. Okay, so that's the most common thing. There's this belief that kava causes liver toxicity. This was never a thing ever. It was never a belief system. It was never published anywhere ever until 2001, where the market was kind of at the precipice of a kava boom, which is why this kind of slowed down kava for a long time. And just like most situations sort of like the natural therapeutics world, usually large companies, pharma companies, agriculture companies, whatever, food companies will try to come in and try to sort of commandeer an emerging industry, and which is what kind of happened. You had this one company, that was out of Germany, this large pharmaceutical company that came in and was trying to make and patent kava-based therapeutics in capsule form. Just like they don't really pay homage or attention to traditional preparation methods. They think they know better than everybody, and they'll take a cookie cutter method that they use to refine or synthesize or extract something to make a pharmaceutical, to try to make an isolate out of it, right? So they try to find the active constituents in it and isolate them by themselves so they can patent them, because they can't patent the whole plant, right? And by doing this, right, it's the difference. That right there is the difference between, coca tea from Peru and cocaine, right? So you notice like one is medicinal. People drink it every day. No one's robbing convenience stores or whatever. And one, and then you synthesize that, or you isolate the constituent and you end up with cocaine, and it ruin your life over the weekend, right? Like it's right. I guess it's
good analogy. Yeah.
It's clearly one of the worst things you can put in your body, right? And it's the same thing with many drugs are plant medicines too. Most drugs are made from plants, but they're isolates, they're synthetic isolates. So they no longer work with the intelligence of the body. So they create side effects and problems. So they were trying to do this. All they were paying attention to was a couple of the most known active constituents, the kavalactones at the time, kavain, a couple other ones. So they try to make these isolates of them. They didn't pay attention to like where they were getting their material. And it's also known traditionally in the South Pacific, the indigenous people, there are many plants in which you have certain parts of the plant that are medicinal and consumable, and other parts of the plant that are toxic, right? Because plants produce defenses, right, to protect themselves. So like, for example, apple seeds have trace amounts of cyanide components in them, right? Rhubarb, you can make a nice pie out of like one part of the plant. The other part is toxic. There's, most mushrooms that grow out of the ground that don't grow on trees, you pick them up and eat them and they're toxic, right? Like there are some mushrooms that will kill you in 30 minutes if you eat them, right? But then there are others that are medicine. Kava, the roots are the medicinal components, the underground portion that doesn't defend itself from pests because nothing is gnawing away at it. The above ground portion, the stems and the leaves, produce plant defense alkaloids that they're not even that toxic, honestly. They just kind of create side effects and roughage and all kinds of stuff. You don't want to eat it. So the indigenous people figured this out literally like 3,000 years ago. They're like, we don't eat that shit at the top because it's like, it makes us sick. The roots are great. So obviously pharma companies, they're just looking to buy the cheapest material they can and extract, because the aerial parts have kavalactones in them too. So like, we're just going to take this. So then they take it, they use a synthetic process, right, with solvents to isolate and concentrate the alkaloids in there. And they also concentrate the plant defense toxins. So they created a synthetic product that was by no definition or structure or form Kava by def. It was not Kava. It was a synthetic derivative isolated product that was not even the right parts of the plant. It was not Kava. And then they gave it in a series of studies to a handful of patients, people, most of which were coming off of alcohol. That's why they were in the study, that, they were on high doses of acetaminophen, things that already deplete liver enzymes. So basically they created a handful of liver toxicity cases with this product, a couple cases of liver failure. So then we still think that there was some foul play in this, because it just was too, the way that it happened, and it got all this media coverage, and then all these countries just banned it all at once, just based on this one sequence of events. So then it just became this sort of repeated story that Kava causes liver toxicity. So you see how like the devil's in the with the information, right?
It's like a very similar story to the whole hormone replacement of the female hormones, estrogen, progesterone, the replacement. They were using synthetic versions, and then they were using the estrogen from horse urine. So the combination of the synthetic and then the horse urine, when they removed the synthetic part, the progestin, and then all the potential cancer causing effect and cardiac, all the side effect went away. Is because they are generalizing a synthetic form of, what they put in the body to what a natural form is. And that set back the whole hormone replacement industry by at least 10 years. And all these women could have gotten relief from all their symptoms, could have protected their heart, their bones, and their immune system, and they didn't, because they got scared. So it's a similar tactic. Very similar, almost the exact same thing. And then another example is that it happened with the amino acid tryptophan in the early 90s. A lot of people have heard about this, where tryptophan was like off the market for like a number of years, like around 1990, 1991. And it was because like one company synthesized a version that was by composition had neurotoxins in it. It was a crappy process or something. And it hurt some people, and it had nothing to do with tryptophan specifically, or very little to do with it. It was in the methodology that they used. And then so tryptophan was taken off the market for years because of that, right? So like you couldn't buy like tryptophan and then finally that was vetted out, and now you can get it anywhere. And it's not, it's just stuff like this happens. And another example is cannabis and CBD, right? I mean, like CBD was always a thing. It was always an available compound, but it was always lumped in with this whole thing of like, there was no distinguishing of like, there's the CBD component versus like super high, like THC that's psychoactive, right? And they both have their therapeutic potential, but THC is more limited because of what it does to you. But like, it was all lumped in as one thing, right? Hemp was used to make rope, and it was taken off the market. You know what I mean? Like it all got banned because of just ignorance and misperception across the board. And it's like this traditional kava is just as different as from these kava extracts as CBD is from synthetic hybridized marijuana, right? Or super hybrid, like, you know what I mean? It's very different. So it's been years after that thing happened, where all that kava was banned. It was vetted out, and there was such a lack of evidence across the board. And I mean, basically it was investigated by the German administrative courts and then overturned. And so much so that even the WHO, I took a position on it, and they're a mess in a lot of cases, but like they took a position on it of like, look, this was a quality control issue. There's now an international quality standard that a network of us, we're involved in it, along with a network of scientists that has published most of the research on kava in the South Pacific and in Europe, submitted a proposal to the WHO Codex Alimentarius Commission. These guys did, and some years ago, for an international quality standard that sets standards for this is what kava is. If it doesn't meet this, then it's just a kava-like product. That was finally passed back 2 years ago now. It was late 2020 that was passed. And so now
not only have the bans been lifted in virtually every country that they're in, but now kava is classified not only as a supplement, but as a food like coffee, right? In virtually most of these countries now. So it's a really, really great progress on that front because that's where it deserves to be. But it's still a misnomer. People will still Google it, even though it's classified as a food now. People will say, oh, kava causes liver toxicity, you know?
Right.
We'll still have like some of these Instagram for like our social media account has locked us out a few times. PayPal has locked us out. It's like, dude, this is a food and you're locking me. You know what I mean? Like it's just, there's this gap between
I know
the scientific community and the just business and, and industry and clinical practice. And it's like, dude,
the kind of judgment, everyone's so self-righteous. Everyone has to be the boss and make a decision. And just like at one point, I remember as QuickBooks did not want to release, a treatment, what patient paid for treatments. And they classified stem cell therapy as miracle cures in the same category as snake oil. And I mean, who are these people at QuickBooks? Would they like me to share some articles with them? Let's talk science. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, they made a decision that you are in that category. So it's just so funny. Everyone wants to jump to a judge.
Well, yeah, it's one of those things today where everybody has a position. Everybody wants to be right. I don't mean everybody, but a large number of people are more interested about being right than finding out what's right, and just, guarding their own ego, their own, whatever they're trying to do, their own individual, like it's just, there's a lot of that's going on today. And there's a lot too. I think if people just ask themselves this, and if I was having a conversation with someone, if we want to have like a productive dialogue that actually goes somewhere that's based on reality, then when you have a perspective and you come to a conclusion about anything on any topic, if you can't show your work to some degree, if you can't even articulate why you believe what you believe or what has led to you believing that, if you're just regurgitating a headline of what somebody else has said, then there's a problem there. It's not a conversation, right? It's like when someone says something that's as bold as stem cells or snake oil, there's no evidence for blah, blah. Well, it's like, that doesn't mean you can say that because that's a headline. That's something that's been said to you. But have you actually, it's like you could send them a drove of published papers, articles, everything that lines out mechanisms there's all of this amazing work that's been done. It's a straight up delusional lie because it's a childish thing to do, honestly.
Right.
Well,
but I'm so glad that you're on this crusade to educate everybody and to really bring this to the world, because you see that this can benefit so many people.
I think anybody who really, really cares about just finding what works and getting as close to the truth in every topic and everything that they're involved in, and just really try to have some sober, rational discussions and subject everything to scrutiny. It's like, we want to see all the evidence, but let's get all the evidence out there and let's actually see what tangibly works, and I just, I think we're all for things, because look, it's like, this comes from a place. I got into this world not through trying to build a career to make money. I get into it with a very specific need, to find what actually works. And when you're in a position like that, which a lot of people get into this kind of work through that mode, you come from a place that at one point, like the only thing that was going to save my life, and then later on people around me, was what's real, right? You can't BS your way out of life-threatening disease. So no matter how much you want to be right or believe this or that because it feels good or whatever, or because you're used to thinking something, or because you want to just go to an authority on something and have them do it for you, that's all well and good until you have no choice, until your life is on the line. And then it's the only thing that matters is what's real,
Right. The medicine spoke to you in no uncertain terms.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So how can people find this amazing product that you have created?
Yeah. So everything is going to be, you can go to trukava.com or follow us on social media. Everything is TRU Kava as far as everything on the Kava project. my individual stuff, I'm still building out everything that's going to be launching, this year. It'll be under just my name, Cameron George. But so all the projects I'm involved in, but everything True Kava is, TRU Kava. Just search that anywhere, and it'll all come up.
Yeah, it's a beautiful brand, and I'm so excited for how much you are bringing this to the general public. So there's going to be lots of Kava around in the society because of your efforts.
Yeah.